Tage, let's move on here to the NFC. I think we can lead off with the Eagles-Commanders game where you get this really, really sort of bizarre, sort of awesome game where unfortunately you have that Jalen Hurts concussion, which is really, really unfortunate. You obviously hope that he's able to make the best decision for himself, or he's able to get healthy on his own terms, at his own pace, and make the best decision for his future. You also have a game where Philadelphia goes up big, like 14-0 big, and you're able to force, a turnover, be able to force a fourth down stop, you're able to force a 3-and-out. And at that point, I mean, Tish, I hate so much when I get this, but it's like, oh, game's over. Nothing drives me more nuts. It's like, it's the first quarter of a game. Can we relax for 3.5 minutes, guys? Come on. Like a whole lot of ball game left. Unfortunately for the Eagles, that situation turned out in this one. When you miss Jalen Hurts, the defense, like Hurts does have a huge effect on a defense. Like the way that when they run counter, the backside, Jalen Hurts sometimes is holding that defensive end just by existing, like because he's a real run threat, because there are times when he's going to keep that and take it around the opposite edge. The end just has to be a little bit slower, or a linebacker has to be a touch delayed as well. But there were a bunch of examples in this game where now you have multiple players just cutting straight in because they're not afraid of Kenny Pickett keeping. Why should they be, right? Like you can kind of get back on your horse and recover there if Pickett does do that. So Washington is now able to stack the box. You're able to get a little bit of base personnel out there, and then you're able to expose, I think, a little bit of the Eagles' maybe issues in run blocking with their tight ends. And a lot of times it was tough jobs, right? If you're cutting off a player that has an inside leverage, like that is a hard thing to do. But then Philadelphia's run game takes a step back. And look, Philadelphia had multiple chances to win this game. I think that when I look at the defensive film, there were times where, Jane Daniels had 2 interceptions like that were not good. And so that is a positive, of course, for the defense. You're able to have a day overall where you force 5 turnovers. Tage, so many things happen in this game where the Washington Commanders kick return team has a bunch of really nice kick returns. And then Jane Daniels just is able to kind of handle the blitz at times. And you get some fourth down play extensions where that is a really, really big thing. Or we talk about it with Mahomes, like, is it sustainable? Is it unsustainable? I would kind of love for these teams to play a third time. I think overall, Philadelphia's pass rush, I think maybe didn't do the best job on those situations, just kind of handling things. You don't obviously want to go straight up the field. You don't want to leave a huge kind of gap for the quarterback to get through. So I think that's something for Fangio to certainly look at. And then, the way that Washington, they had one drive where they went like, I think it was 96 yards or 98 yards where you're just throwing verticals on the outside. I think that when I think about the playoffs, I would assume that offenses do that, where you have the Packers, whether it's Reed or Watson. Then you have, of course, the Vikings with Addison on the outside, of course, Jefferson as well. And then you have the Lions throwing like Jameson Williams on verticals on the outside. You should, I think, target, look at Darius Slay a little bit there, where Slay's played really, really well this year. But when you look at the other side with Quinyon Mitchell, he did have a bad coverage rep in this one that ended up in a touchdown. But Slay has missed some time with injuries. And I think that is a spot that you can attack, just because when you're looking at the rest of the defense, it's a little bit tough. But also the safety spot for Philadelphia, I think in some of those red zone situations where you're playing, some of your matchy type coverages, I think if you have some of those beaters, there's been multiple times this year where you've seen touchdowns happen. And that's not to even say that, Jordan Davis got injured in this game, Nakobe Dean got injured in this game, Josh Sweat got injured in this game, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson gets thrown out of this game. So many things where I feel like part of me wants to think, oh, you can't take anything away for this from if you're Philadelphia, because you lost your quarterback in the game. Like that is a really, really big thing. But then also, like the high-end defensive performance, not that it's like unsustainable for this unit, you just are not always going to just shut out an opposing team. And again, I think that Devontae Smith catches, like it makes one catch. Saquon Barkley ends up coming down with the ball. The Eagles are pretty much able to win this game. I'm just curious, those small pain points, which they could be big pain points, just like what's that kind of mean going forward for the Eagles defense, particularly as they, they're done with the 1 seed, right? They're going to be pretty much locked into that 2 seed. You host at least a playoff game, right? You're guaranteed that situation. Now it could be the Washington. It could actually be Green Bay, which that would be obviously a rematch from week 1 in Brazil. That would be a fun one overall. All right, Tish. I went long there because there were so many things that just happened in the game that, like, again, it's hard for me to take a bunch away, but I do want to focus on those small things that, hey, maybe that is kind of a point of concern for Philadelphia. And again, for Jane Daniels to be able to do that, like, what a sick story for this guy. Really, really fun. I'm done with the Brock Bowers Rookie of the Year. I can't fight it anymore, Tage. Let's just go ahead and give Jane Daniels the award.
I'm glad you came around on that, because I've been pro Jaden Daniels winning Rookie of the Year this year. And yeah, there is so much to talk about in this game. Highly encourage everyone to check out the Philly special, where you'll break it down in even more detail. But yeah, starting with I'm glad that you mentioned the Eagles' run game not having the same success without Jalen Hurts in it. Even if Jalen Hurts is not rushing the ball, it's just a lot harder for a run game to get going when you don't have a mobile quarterback, especially when they play such a big role in what you like to do in the run game because of the gravity that they generate and because of just like the different types of plays that you're able to run with them. And I don't know how interesting this is to people, but when I build my models to predict how many yards a certain rushing play will have, like who the quarterback is a big feature in that model. Like it matters a lot with the same offensive line, same play caller. How many yards you get with a mobile quarterback versus a quarterback who's not as mobile. And so, you definitely saw that in this game. You did have the explosive Saquon Barkley run, but he only had a 34% success rate when rushing the ball in this game. So definitely a drop down in performance there. And the other thing I thought was really interesting was just like the difference between how the Commanders are operating their offense with respect to their pass catchers versus the Eagles, where you have AJ Brown get 18 targets in this game. You have Devontae Smith get 8 targets. And then Gainwell and Saquon Barkley were the only two other pass catchers on the Eagles to get targets, and they each got one. And there were no other Eagles pass catchers that got targets. Meanwhile, for the Commanders, this has just been their story of the season, where like you had Noah Brown step up a lot early in the season. You had some nice plays from Zach Ertz early in the season. Now you have Zacchaeus stepping up. In his revenge game against the Eagles. You have obviously Terry McLaurin's been great, but like Jamison Crowder catching the touchdown pass, involving some of the running backs in the pass game as well. Like it was just nice to see that the Commanders have so many options they can go to when they need some of these plays later in the game, especially during their comeback. And what was really impressive for the Commanders to win this game with all the turnovers that they had, like you mentioned, where Brian Robinson had negative 15 total EPA when rushing in this game, lost about 10 EPA off of his 2 fumbles, and only one of his 10 rushes were successful in this game. So that put the Commanders, in a really bad situation. And Jaden Daniels was able to lead them back. He had the scramble on 4th and 11, just like an amazing play, really great awareness to be able to pick up that first down and more. And then the game-winning drive was just so impressive by Jaden Daniels. He used both his arm and his legs to move the offense down the field, made a huge throw, to win the game. Just like, I mean, it's just been a very special rookie season, and I'm really glad that we've gotten to witness it.
Yeah, like I mentioned, there's a chance that this is a rematch for the third time. Obviously, it would be in Philadelphia in the playoffs. That could be a real fun one in round
Mm-hmm.
one. Tej, I want to move on here to the Lions over the Bears, where of course, you mentioned Olamide Zacchaeus' revenge game. I don't know, like it's Ben Johnson's, like it's obviously not an interview. It's like your pre-interview where, Ben Johnson just pulls up the film if he ends up interviewing for the Bears head coaching job. It's like, hey, we don't have to talk too much, just like look at this. Look at all the things. Obviously, your tape is always your resume, and there's more to head coaching than just calling fun plays. But it's Ben Johnson. He's the number one candidate, I think, for a lot of reasons. I think we really saw it again in this game, where look, we have Jared Goff winning outdoor games. We're just breaking narratives out here. You love to see it. I really enjoy watching Jared Goff play in this offense, and Tej, I really also enjoy Jahmyr Gibbs because it really feels like, I think what you see this sometimes more when you watch college, or when it's a team where the offense is kind of like really overmatching the defense, where a guy will get a ball in space and you're just like, there's just no way that this guy's going to get tackled for a loss. This guy's going to get 10 yards every time he touches the ball. Gibbs does move like that. And it's wild to see that at the NFL level, because obviously everyone is so fast. So every time he touches the ball, it's such an exciting situation. Obviously, you have the Montgomery injury, which is unfortunate. Maybe that means that Gibbs just has more touches overall. Of course, you don't want to just like run him into the ground, but in the playoffs, it's not like they're going to really be holding much back there. And then, I mean, Tish, we of course have to talk about the beautiful play where Jared Goff is faking a fumble. We got Gibbs just rolling around on the ground. Everyone's yelling fumble, fumble, fumble to really pull those linebackers up. Now, I will say, the messages in the text usually stay in the text, but it felt like your dad wasn't really impressed by that one, huh?
Yeah, he was hating on the Chick-fil-A. Like I when I saw it, I thought it was like one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And he was just like, "Oh yeah, that was a fine Chick-fil-A. Like it wasn't anything special." It takes a lot to get him excited with how much football he's watched. So hopefully Lions can do something cooler in the playoffs to get him excited about that. But yeah, like I thought you brought up so many good points there about the Lions offense, where Jahmyr Gibbs is just like a really good running back, and without David Montgomery, you don't have like your bruiser, your guy that can tire out the defense. But like when Gibbs can get 20 carries in a game, or 25 touches because of what he can add in the receiving game, like it's definitely really beneficial for this offense. Where again, like go to sumersports.com data tables, look at the ball carrier page, and you can see he has the highest explosive run rate in the league this season at 16.1% of his carries going for explosives. He's the third highest yards per carry behind Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, just ahead of Bucky Irving. So just like a very good season from Gibbs behind this offensive line. The other thing I thought was impressive in this game was Jamison Williams, who had a huge day. It's clear that the Lions' game plan was to target Tyreek Stevenson a lot throughout the day. He was often matched up on Jamison Williams. And so you have the 84-yard touchdown. You have just some other really nice plays from him. And then you mentioned Goff, like kind of, playing better outdoors. Like Goff has just continually answered a lot of questions about him throughout the season. He's performed a lot better when outside of the pocket, relative to how he's been before. He played well in this game as he's played well throughout the year this season. And so that together too has made this Lions offense, very fun to watch. And I think that, even if there are some question marks about the defense, you just hope if you're the Lions that you can just outscore teams, at the last 2 weeks of the season into the playoffs.
I mean, there's a chance that the defense gets like quote shredded over every single
Yeah.
game that they play in the playoffs and through the rest of the regular season, and that it just does not matter because the offense is so good. So if you want to continue to see the defense lean into variance and continue to just like make one splash play, and that can be the entire game in a few different ways. I like you mentioned Jameson Williams there. Of course, I'm a big Jameson Williams fan. Just seeing him be able to be a productive player is obviously really good, and then you can lean on him sometimes for some of those huge explosive plays as well. The Lions are, sitting kind of pretty in the 1 seed right now, though they will be fighting with the Vikings. The Vikings, of course, won against the Seahawks in a rainy game, in a tight game, in a game that, you get a lot of good from Sam Darnold. You get some really good situations from Seattle's defense handling some of the third down plays. I think that in that game, you could have a few different takeaways. Like the Vikings defense, when they're playing against an offense that can kind of protect it up a little bit and attack you on the outside. And we've been talking about this since early in the season. That's the situation when you're an offense. Like that is what you want to get into. I mean, Gino had some superhero plays in this game, which it's hard for quarterbacks to do that. I keep thinking about like we will preview the Vikings and Packers. Of course, we have to. It's just going to be such a fun Week 17 matchup. When we look to the first time that the Vikings played the Packers, the Vikings got to this huge lead. You get a bunch of like positive defensive plays early, and then the Packers are kind of scratching back because Jordan Love is I'm going to hang out in this pocket. That ball is going down the field no matter you catch it, if I catch it, or if anyone else catches it. So I'm super excited for their rematch and just to look at Minnesota's defense overall, because it feels like the Vikings offense has improved. Not that the defense has taken like a huge step back, but the defense isn't like you're not having 6 turnovers in a game or turnovers that are just like totally wiping an offense out. Though Dallas Turner had a really nice interception in this one. Of course, they have Andrew Van Ginkel who will drop into space. Dallas Turner dropped into a space a lot at Alabama from that edge spot. So to have him have that versatility where I think they're still kind of finding things overall for him as a pass rusher to get going, I think that can be a fun thing for that defensive unit. And that goes without mentioning, again, Sam Darnold, like, wow, he really earning himself a lot of money. I am fascinated to see what happens for him and the Vikings next year, whether it's, can you find some sort of like, is the franchise tag? Is it, I'm not sure if he would, like, why would he take a pay cut if he's able to get a bunch of money going somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, what the Vikings do with Sam Darnold this offseason will be such a fascinating decision because, you do have just like the advantage of JJ McCarthy on the rookie deal. The early signs from preseason were definitely promising, but you don't know if like a drop back game with JJ McCarthy can reach the heights that this Darnold led passing game is for the Vikings right now, where he is fifth in EPA per play, on the season so far. Had a good game in this game, like just like efficiently targeting Justin Jefferson was like the story of the game for the Vikings, where Justin Jefferson had 13 total EPA, win targeted, a 77% success rate, win targeted, and like the play of the game was, Darnold stepping up in the pocket, finding Jefferson down the field for the go ahead touchdown for the Vikings. And as they just continue to do that, like you find Jefferson, you find Addison. Hawkinson is still working himself back from injury and getting loose there. But like the pass game really bailed out the Vikings run game in this game because Seattle did a great job of stopping the run. And so O'Connell being able to lean on Darnold and have him drop back as many times as he did in this game, I'm sure made him feel more comfortable going forward, where Darnold ended up attempting 42 passes in this game and was able to be efficient on most of them. And so I think that'll be something to watch going forward is Darnold's usage, because he showed that he can handle a relatively high usage when the run game is not working against the Seahawks on Sunday.
I talk about Kevin O'Connell and his ability to you put Justin Jefferson at the top of the progression. You get Jefferson and Addison and stacks and find different ways to kind of manipulate the coverage. I mean, on that drive that you mentioned with Darnold's touchdown, I think KOC's his battery pack went out on his mic. So now Sam Darnold just kind of calling plays. It's like a fun story. And I like that you mentioned, you have just a ton of drop back attempts for Sam Darnold. And like, I love how much KOC loves play action passes, but to be able to have a game where Darnold has that many attempts. And of course, on the other side, I mean, the Vikings defense was able to close the game on that last interception where Geno's kind of targeting Metcalf. Seems like they're on the wrong page in that situation. So overall, it just like I just love the Vikings. Like it's so easy to root for. It's so fun to kind of watch them in this situation. And I don't want to keep thinking about next year already, but yeah, like can you win potentially the 1 seed and then move on from that quarterback? Just a fun kind of narrative overall. So the Vikings and the Lions, of course, have the same record right now. The Vikings' next two games are the Packers, tough game, and then the Lions, potentially a very tough game, but the Lions only have the 49ers and then Minnesota. So the Lions play the 49ers on Monday night next week. The Vikings lose to the Packers there. I'm not sure, what ends up happening for that week 18 matchup. I think for the fun of it all, for the content, Tage, for the film, I think we're rooting for that Detroit Minnesota matchup to mean a whole lot. And Minnesota really has kind of a fun ride kind of going into the playoffs. It's just wild to think that, that NFC North is going to have a at least 13 win team. And they're going to be like the 5 seed. It really reminds me, of course, just the NFC playoffs is going to be a long ride.